Hello, everyone. It is time for another book review. I've actually got two books to review today. It's been a while, which we're going to get into. I feel like every time I make a video, I'm like, it's been a while, and just life keeps happening. We have two drastically different vibes of books today. So I'm going to talk about There Is a Door in This Darkness by Kristin Cashore and The Spellshop by Sarah Beth Durst. As a content warning, the first book we're going to talk about, There Is a Door in This Darkness, is heavy and talks a lot about grief and a lot about politics and COVID. So putting that out there, and I'm also going to be relaying it to my own life and what I've been going through with grief recently. So, if you just want to hear about a cozy, fun read, totally understandable. I'll put timestamps down below so that you can skip right ahead to the spell shop, but I feel like I need to do There Is a Door in This Darkness first, just because of things that are going on in my life as an update, but timestamps down below so that you can get to what actually vibes with you right now, because sometimes we can't deal with the heavy stuff, and that's okay. So, There Is a Door in This Darkness is heavy, and I loved it. I know a lot of people aren't going to love it, so I'm putting that out there. A lot of people aren't going to love it for various reasons, one of them being that it is heavy. Another reason is highly political. Even if you agree with the politics, some people just don't want to read that. This is a magical realism book that is a stark departure from Kristin Cashore's Graceling series, which actually you can see right on the shelf over there. That is high fantasy. This is magical realism. It takes place in the real world. If you're not familiar with magical realism, which honestly, in reading other people's reviews of this book, I feel like a lot of people don't really know what magical realism is, and they go in with very different expectations, expecting actual fantasy. But if you don't know what magical realism is, I personally love the genre. I was introduced to it through Italo Calvino and Haruki Murakami, who are still two of my favorite authors. But it's basically real world, or something that can look like real world, stories that have just a touch of magic, or the feeling of magic without actually having magic in it. I enjoy it. It is very different from fantasy. Honestly, I don't think the two genres should even be compared. This is much more realistic fiction than fantasy. But that is my quick rundown of magical realism. Look into it if you're intrigued. One of the reasons I really liked the magical realism in this book is that it is honestly very true to real world witchcraft. There are some things that are obviously like a little more heightened or a little more flashy than most real world witchcraft, but a lot of it also is not anything that's out of the realm of possibility. So, as a witch myself, I really enjoyed reading this for that reason. Just a lot of things that I do in my everyday practice were talked about in this, and that was really great. So I enjoyed the magical realism for that reason. This story is about a teenager, an 18-year-old who graduated during the 2020 COVID pandemic. The main character, Wilhelmina, is kind of struggling with a lot of things. Kind of. That is such an understatement. So she's dealing with having become an adult during this pandemic, graduated without having a real graduation, a high school graduation, taking an unplanned gap year because she wasn't going off to college in the middle of a pandemic. And she's also struggling with the 2016 election, the Trump presidency. In addition to that, she's dealing with the loss of one of her aunts. And this is where I start crying. She has 3 aunts, 3 magical aunts, and they are amazing. And I no longer want the aunts from Practical Magic to be my aunts. I want these to be my aunts, because they are amazing. They are a throuple. They are an elderly throuple, and it's amazing, and they are witchy and wonderful, and they're just so amazing and kind-hearted. And when we start the story in present day, one of the aunts has died of breast cancer. It was one of those things that was ongoing pretty much throughout Wilhelmina's life, but when the death actually happened, she was just shocked by it and didn't really know how to grieve. And in present day, in the story, it is a couple years after that death, but she still hasn't processed it. She's still struggling with that. And this is in the middle of the pandemic and dealing with the Trump supporters and everything else. So she's really struggling with a lot. The book does a lot of flashbacks. Like every chapter has parts of flashbacks because she would spend her summers with the aunts. So throughout the book, you get to see time that she spent with her 3 aunts, especially with this one aunt who is no longer around, because we do see the other aunts in present day. So it really builds that relationship in a great way. I'm not a huge fan of like flashbacks in general in stories, but the way that they're incorporated in this book is done really well. And it's done really well because the things you're learning about in her present day story are things that tie back to the flashbacks, but they are not like things that you tie together right away. They're not like hitting you over the head with, look at what happened kind of thing. I thought it was really well done. This hits very close to home. First of all, it literally hits close to home because it takes place in Massachusetts. It takes place in, I think Quincy. It takes place in a town very close to Boston. And I am now back in Massachusetts where I grew up. So it hits close to home for that reason, but also it hits very close to home because ever since I moved back, I have been dealing with the fact that my aunt is dying of cancer. Like Frankie, Wilhelmina's aunt, in the book, my aunt has been battling cancer on and off for many, many years. I drove her to her oncology appointments when I was in college, and it's been back and forth for many years. When I moved back and I stopped by her house for the first time, in April, we had a whole conversation, and she had just been in the hospital for 7 months, and she was stopping all treatments. She knew how bad it was, and she was like, this is my time. So that's why I haven't been making content, because I have been spending all of my free time and energy when I have it, with my aunt, and just spending her last moments, with her. And, it's been time that I wouldn't trade for the world. I'm finally making this video today. I've been meaning to make it for a couple of weeks, actually, but I'm finally making this video today, and my aunt actually died yesterday, so this is fresh wounds. I feel like I'm always talking about death on this channel. Death's in my life a lot. Just seeing what Wilhelmina goes through is very, very close to home. My dad died of cancer when I was 15. My other aunts died of cancer. This aunt has been battling cancer since I was in college. So, it's a subject I'm very well familiar with. And now as we're going into the 2024 elections, and COVID is still not gone because people are people, unfortunately, it's just been, like, it's not a book for everyone to read, honestly. It is not a book for everyone to read right now, but it is very relevant, and it is a beautiful story if you can handle it. So this book comes with a bunch of trigger warnings about politics and about a lot of, like, not just politics, but a lot of, like, anti-queer stuff. Not that the writing is, but that the characters experience that and have to, deal with it. A lot of racism and all, all of that stuff that comes with current day politics, unfortunately. And then the stress of the pandemic, because this takes place during the election of 2020. This takes place like the week leading up to the election. So a lot of the stress of still being in quarantine and still being worried about everything. This was before the vaccines came out and everything, and dealing with the grief that she hadn't processed. It is a very, very heavy book. I loved it. It is, again, not for everyone to read, especially at this moment in time, maybe 10 years down the line. But I just really wanted to talk about it because, first of all, I love Kristen Couture. I've done videos on her Graceling series. I'll put that up above, although I think it was only the first 3 books were released at the time. Maybe 4. This is so different from her other books, but I thought it was really important, and it was very well done. So I wanted to talk about that. Now for a completely different vibe, I absolutely loved the Spellshop. This is exactly what I needed this week. Dealing with my aunt dying and everything. It's been on my to-read list, and it just released last month, I think, but I picked this up because my fantasy book group was reading it for this month and doing a discussion. So I picked it up finally because of that. Oh, not finally, it literally just released, but I picked it up because of that. We're supposed to read like the first 12 chapters the first week, and then the next 12 chapters or 13 chapters the next week, and then the rest the third week. I have already finished it. We haven't even done week 2 discussion yet. I just couldn't put it down. It was great. First of all, look at how gorgeous this cover is. And so I started listening to it on audiobook because the waitlist at the library had such a long hold, and I didn't at first have the money to buy the book. So I started listening to an audiobook, and I knew, like, the cover looked pretty. But nobody told me the edges of the book are purple. Look at how pretty that is. I love it. My only complaint, literally my only complaint, is that the actual cover is boring. Like, just put something here, as someone who has worked in cover design. But I love this book. It was so cozy. It was so comforting to read. I don't read a lot of cozy novels. I mean, I like this stuff like There's a Door in This Darkness. I don't read a lot of cozy books, and I really don't read a lot of romance. And this is a romantasy, but it is on the light side of the romantasy. First of all, there's no smut. Yay! Not morally opposed to it, I just don't want it myself. But this is so cute. So the premise is, sorry, I was editing this video and I realized that I forgot to mention the best summary of this premise that I said to the discussion group and everyone agreed. The premise of this book is basically if Stardew Valley was a novel. Do with that what you will. So the premise is that this awkward librarian who has no social skills has to leave the library and the city that she has called home and go back to her hometown, her home island, to her the land that she inherited from her parents, which is an overgrown mess, and she has to tame it into something that she can garden and grow food in. And if this sounds like me, hi, this is basically me. At least in that basic premise. As a librarian who literally just left Chicago to go back to my hometown in Massachusetts, in rural Massachusetts, with a very overgrown land that I have spent all summer trying to cut back, and I feel like I've done no progress. But I have gotten a lot of cherry tomatoes this summer, so yay! The fruits of my labor. This is me. Except she lives in a fantasy world and can use magic to magically clear out her land and make things grow very quickly. I'm very jealous of that. And also she has a really helpful, really cute neighbor who obviously becomes the love interest. And he's just like really helpful. Oh, and she has a sentient talking snake plant as a familiar, and I love that. There's just so much fun in here. Like she starts off like she really hasn't talked to anyone in forever. She just like lives in her little alcove in the city library and doesn't talk to anyone. She just fulfills research requests and doesn't deal with people. She doesn't have friends. And she has no social skills, and that's kind of by choice. And she is super, super awkward when she comes to this little remote island that she was born on, but hasn't lived since she was like 9. And everyone knows everyone knows everyone's business, everyone wants to be super, well, not everyone, but a lot of people want to be super helpful and friendly. And she just does not want that. She just wants to hide away in her parents' cottage until the revolution that made her flee the city. I left out that part. But until the revolution calms down and she can go back to her library. She stole a bunch of spell books from the library when she fled. She borrowed. She saved them because they were burning the library. But she's like worried that people will come after her, arrest her, and kill her for stealing spells. But even with the backdrop of like this violent revolution and stealing spells and being afraid for her life, it's a very cozy book. I promise. It's all about the power of books and magic and gardening and spider plants. It is a lot of fun, especially her banter with the spider plant. Her name is Keela. I never mention people's names. I'm so bad at that in reviews when I don't do them with a script. This is the thing. I'm not doing it with a script. I'm not even doing bullet points. I'm just talking because I don't have the mental power to actually write a script. If I say I'm going to write a script at this point in my life, I will just not get the video done. So anyway, main character's name, Keela. Spider plant's name, Cal. Cal? Kaz. Their banter is amazing and so great, and I love it. One of the things about a lot of cozy books tend to fall flat for me, not because there's very little plot. There is plot, but it's cozy plot, you know? But a lot of cozy books tend to fall flat for me just because there still isn't a lot to the characters. I love a good character depth and character development. this book really does that. Like, Keela really, really changes and becomes this amazing person. There's more high stakes than most cozy books. I would say it's like medium stakes. So it's not a flat out like nothing happens kind of book, but I think it was perfect for me. I think it was the perfect blend for me, and it was honestly what I needed right now. I definitely recommend checking this out if you are interested, because everyone in the book discussion has been enjoying it. Everyone's raving about it, and that includes me. And yeah, I couldn't put it down. I read up to chapter 12, and then I kept reading, and I finished it in a day. So, yeah, it's got to be a good book for me to actually finish it in a day. So, yay. I think I'm going to stay away from heavy books for a couple weeks, but I still have this book that I need to read, that I need to get back to. I have the habit of picking up books exactly when I don't need them, which is actually why I'm so glad that I picked up this one when I needed it, because that never happens. Because I picked up this one right after Felix died in February, literally right after Felix died, and the main character's cat dies on page 6. And I don't think that's a spoiler. But I've been told it all works out in the end, because it's a book about like parallel universes and different choices in life and stuff. And I've been told like it's fine, but I haven't gone back to it because I just haven't been in that kind of mindset. But I really want to. This is still on my shelf waiting to be read, but in the meantime, Matt Haig just came out with The Life Impossible, which I'm going to pick up, and I'm looking forward to reading that too. So even though that's about depression. But those are the 2 books I wanted to talk about for this video. I've been reading a bunch, but I don't always make videos about everything because life has been... It's been life. It's been hectic. There's been a lot going on. But if you are interested in all the other books I've been reading, I always write reviews, or at the very least rate them, what I've finished, but I try to write reviews for especially books I really love. I always keep my Goodreads and my Storygraph updated, so those links are down below. Sometimes I don't keep the Storygraph updated immediately, but I get everything up to date eventually. You can always follow those. Those links are down below if you are interested in anything else I've been reading. But that's going to be it for today, because look, I've rambled so much. This is what happens when I don't have a script, and this video is getting pretty long. So I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think about those books. Did you put either of them on your to-read list? Or have you read them? And I will see you later. Bye!